Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Get started here. A quick thank you that I couldn't express completely enough to Eliz for coordinating the slides that we're going to go through tonight and all the effort that she's put into this. Thank you, Eliz, again.
My pleasure.
Again, thanks to everybody for participating, for offering to help in running our races this season. Looking forward to a full and more regular season than last year. We have, as Eliz is working on that, I will just open up with saying, so the slides that we're going to go through, there's a couple of new things that we'll spend some time calling out. Hopefully they are all helpful. I think when I looked at everybody that's signed up, and Eliz and I looked at there isn't anybody that has registered to do committee vote this year that hasn't done it in the past. But for anybody else that is on this call and here to learn, there is new content in here, and it's structured a little bit differently than it has been before. There is still a video posted on the MAST website for anybody that wants to go and see parts of that. I think we're not going to be covering or not going to be just showing that video tonight. We'll be going through the slides, but that's always there if anybody has, the desire to go watch. But the slides,
and we'll be posting this one too.
Yeah, and thank you. And the slides I hope you'll see are organized in a fashion that's a little more sequential in what we expect the sequence of events would be for anybody that's out there doing committee vote. So first up, I think the agenda, we'll just take a quick look at that, right? So we have this first piece that I was referring to is the committee vote roles. Obviously, people will do things the way that best suits them, but we really have tried to give a little bit of structure so it's easier to follow and understand. The role, and then Eliz really has broken this out to before the race, the actions and activities that happen before, setting up the course, checking in the boats, starting the race, what you do during the race, finishing, and then some of the other extenuating circumstances that might come up, like delays, cancellations, course changes, etc. And then very, very important is getting Eliz accurate and legible information at the end of the evening before all of the beers have set in, and as quickly as possible. So that's the highlights of what we'll go through tonight. I think, okay, so the first piece, thank you, is setting the course. Kind of a minimum recommendation is that we've come up with is about 5 people, really 5 to 6 people to run committee vote is optimal. And you'll see here we have a couple different roles, right? So you have the skipper, obviously. There's 2 people that are generally required to set the pin, to deploy and set the pin. 1 person to record compass heading from the pin to the first mark. And then 1 or 2 people to deploy your anchor. Yep, thank you. Checking in boats. Again, for those of you who haven't done this, there's 2 different ways that people can check in general. There's the flyby or the sail by, right? Sailing within close proximity of the committee boat, calling out their boat name or sail numbers. So 1 person should be available to identify and listen for those boats and jot those numbers down when they check in. And then another person operating or listening to the VHF radio and checking in the boats, right? And I'm sorry, and 2 people documenting who's checked in via either method, right? The person that's on the radio, I'll just throw out quick, if you have the chance to just give a quick acknowledgement, got you Tivito, got you Silver Girl, whoever, right? That's helpful so that people know and they don't keep calling in and stepping over somebody else that might be calling in to check in. Thank you. Again, starting the race. So recommendation, we have 1 person that is counting down, 1 that is on the horn making the sound signals, another person, actually 2 people working flags, 1 for raising and lowering the P flag, and then another person that is in charge of the division flags. I don't know if I should say it, I talked about this before, but we have on our boat, and Dana can chime in on this one because she's the person that's done it. We've had 1 person that has run both flags, It does get tiring if you're using both arms, waving flags around. And this season, of course, we're looking at 4 divisions instead of 3. So it's an extra 5 minutes of waving those flags around. The second person is really recommended to have 2 people doing that. So another person on the radio making announcements, and we'll go down, we'll talk a little more in depth about what should be announced on the radio and what kinds of things we recommend and would like people to do with that. And then another person that's going to be situated, keeping an eye on the starting line itself, right? So sitting underneath the orange starting flag or behind the flag and sighting down to the pin, that can keep an eye on boats, hopefully starting on time, or if there's anybody over early, letting, either having a horn available, but basically hailing or calling out to that boat. If weather conditions are such, then getting on the radio, etc. Finishing the race, similar to starting, we recommend one person that's watching that finish line and sounding the horn. Another one that is calling out boat names that are approaching. This one in particular, I find very helpful, right? It's a lot easier to jot things down. I mean, typically you can even have the boat names written down if you're familiar with them, have some binoculars out, line up the sail numbers if you're not familiar with the boat. So you have it kind of, you can tell who's going to finish in what order. If it's a tight bunch, it's a different story. But that person sitting and identifying approaching boats is very, very helpful. Another person calling out the times when they hear the horn sound, right? So whoever is sighting the line and sounding the horn, another person is going to document the times, or I'm sorry, call out the times, and then 1 to 2 people recording the finishing times on the scratch sheet. And there's the last bullet point here. I think somebody made the suggestion last year, which is very good. There are certain times when the finishes are pretty bunched up, and having a camera either mounted, you could, I don't know, tape it to a shroud, or if you have somebody that's available to hold on to it and capture either with still pictures if you want to, but getting a video of the boats as they come across the line can be very helpful to go back and just be able to review. And on that, actually, I guess the other benefit Eliz mentioned to me earlier is if you do the video, you have audio also, being able to hear the times that are called out when the horn is sounded as well. All right, so let me pause for just a second and see if anybody has any questions up to this point about roles and responsibilities. I guess via chat, if anybody has anything, just pop in on the chat. Okay.
Good.
Excellent. All right, so the next couple slides, we're going to talk about what to do before the race. Key to note is any documents that you would need to run the committee vote or work as the committee vote will be available on the MAST website. And thank you, Liz. So get familiar with this. They will also generally be available in a folder, which we'll get to in the doc box, but downloading the forms yourself, get familiar with them beforehand. It's very helpful. Did you want to talk about this? There's two forms.
Yeah,
right?
there's 2 different forms. There's the the official finish time of submission form, and then I provide scratch sheets, which are really literally scratch sheets to scribble your finish times and check-ins and all of that on as you're doing it. They'll be sorted by boat name and by sail number. So if you see a sail number coming, you can find that. Some people like to do that by sail number. Some people like boat name. I usually have both available as I'm trying to do things fast. Scribble on them, make a mess, but then we'll go over this, but the finish time submission form is the one that you use to actually send in for the scores.
Thank you. Okay, and here again, I love this picture because the first time I did committee vote, I actually struggled to find the doc box. So this is just a handy reference to understand where that doc box is located, and all of the equipment that you would need to run run the race will be in there. Identified here in this picture, you see that the dock box is open. There's the yellow inflatable, the primary yellow inflatable that's used for setting the pin end, is in the sail bag, documented in the wheelbarrow. What do we call those again?
Dock cart.
Yes, dock cart. Thank you. And then there is an alternate one if there's any issue with that one, or if there's reason or need for a second, there is another one that's in the dock box in the yellow bag depicted there. Also in that dock box, I mean, there's horns, there's the flags that you need, all the division flags, etc. New to this year, for any of you that were on the call last week, I think we mentioned this. This yellow, I'm going to call it a buoy, fender or buoy, is going to be in the dock box and available for the committee boat to use as a keep away buoy. Okay, it's not on there yet, but we'll have a line that will be secured to it, and the purpose of it is really just what the name sounds like. It is meant to give a buffer and keep boats away from you as the sitting duck in the committee boat, right at the start. So it's meant to be deployed off the stern, assuming that you've got the wind off on the bow. I recommend that you let it drift off about 8 to 10 feet. You can do a little bit more if conditions warrant. But it is a part, and it is to be considered a part of the committee boat. So starting boats are not to touch it. If they do, they have to take a penalty. And we have periodically, either by mistake or by aggressive starting, we have had some close calls. But so I recommend it. You don't have to use it. It's not required, as I said, but it's kind of nice to keep people away and let them know that they're getting a little too close already. All right. As you're all familiar, we have, and welcome back, right, to we have three standard courses. Windward Leeward, our distance race, which is really the race out to the bell buoy and back, and then Triangle, which is returning this year, which is the race from the MAST mark out around the South Shore Yacht Club buoys and back. The inflatable mark, many of you are familiar with. This is in the committee boat quick guide as well, but this is a great picture because the understanding which valve is which is very helpful. The one on the top, the blue valve, is the one used for inflating, and the really big one that you see with the orange arrow pointing to it is to be open for deflating. It allows it to deflate very quickly.
And the inflator, just in case anybody hasn't used it, those little clips hook to a battery, or we use a battery charger. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. Thank you. And there is one end that will be blowing and one end that will not, right? So
right.
It becomes pretty apparent quickly which end to use. Okay, so our windward leeward courses. This is, our standard operation is to set the starting line so that the mast mark is to windward of the starting line. We don't want to see, obviously, depending on the wind direction, we don't want anybody setting a starting line outside or in the shaded area that Liz is depicted here. The mast mark is the center one with the bullseye on it. So the starting line should really be, again, anywhere in closer to the wall, approximately 1 nautical mile away from the mast mark. Clay posted something, I think, from South Shore Yacht Club this morning on the Facebook page, notifying us that the fishing nets are set again. And there's an interesting twist this year, which is that it sounds like they've also deployed fishing nets on the south side of the North Gap, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I don't know how they're getting away with it, but that doesn't really matter to whoever set them, right? So we're gonna, I think Liz or whoever's out there early is going to try to get some eyes on them and understand where they are. We'll update this document to depict that and notify everybody, how problematic it might be, or if we have any other suggestions about how to work around them. Okay, so I think this is another great one. Setting the starting line, right, on a windward leeward course, the object in this, or the ideal, is to have the pin end set directly downwind of the mast mark, right, of the first mark. If the wind direction doesn't allow for it, if the wind direction is coming from west, obviously then you can do a downwind start, and the same would be in principle. You want to have the line set square to the wind, and the pin again approximately 1 mile away from the mast mark. Right, so the location of the committee boat is not like, you're not trying to center the line on the mark. It's the pin from the pin end to the mark that really should be taken into consideration when you're trying to get that directly upwind or downwind of the mark. Liz, do you want to add anything to that?
Just our recommended length of that line is 300 feet, or approximately 1.1 nautical miles if you are using your chart plotter to do that. And then, you can see the orange flag that we'll be using this year as our start mark deployed off the side of the committee boat, and the cute keep away buoy off the back of the committee boat as well.
Yeah, great depiction. And again, I think that most of you have done this before. That 300-foot length recommendation is a good one. Don't be afraid to set it a little bit bigger. I think setting a line that's too short sets yourself up for a very exciting job as committee boat. And you'll certainly want that keep away buoy if you set it too close or too short. So give yourself, plenty of room, give the boats plenty of room. There's really not a reason not to. Okay, our distance race is really, it's out to the bell buoy and back. The starting area should be set just somewhere in the area south of the main gap, right? And not too close to the wall. We want to make sure that there's enough seaway in there for people to maneuver or finish, or other boats to pass through as well. But it should also be south of the channel and any shipping lanes in there. Okay, and then our standard triangle course. So standard triangle course, again, in this instance, you don't necessarily hopefully have to use the inflatable. We use the mast mark as the pin end of the starting line and the finish. So same rules apply. Set yourself up about 300 feet or so away from the mast mark, we want the line in this case for the triangle course should be set perpendicular to a line drawn from the first mark. Does that explain it correctly? I think
yes.
Okay.
Should be.
So wind direction is not as influential in the line placement in this case. Okay. All right, so setting up the course, as we talked about already, the keep away buoy. Right, so, okay, so the courses are fairly well set. Now, there have been occasions, we've seen it every year, at least in the last 2 years. Last year, we used it even more because of the COVID situation and South Shore's not having deployed their marks. But we have an alternate course to use, which is an alternate triangle. I think most commonly this would be used if the weather conditions are such that a committee boat would really have a hard time either setting and holding anchor or holding their stomachs while they sit at anchor. We have certainly had both occasions, but it gives us the option and the flexibility and stuff to keep the committee boat protected, allow for a relatively safe and controlled start and finish. But it is set inside the breakwater, just south of the North Gap, and the boats obviously go head south and out the main gap and around the mast mark, and then back in the North Gap and into the finish. Anytime there may be reason to do this, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call me or text me if anybody has questions at any time about any of this. I can be called, Liz can be called. Yeah.
Communicate early,
Yeah. Thank you.
early in the week, whenever.
Yep.
And Jay, the other two ways that the course could be altered is if a triangle course or a distance course is the course that we're supposed to be setting, but light wind would prevent us from actually finishing either of those courses, a committee boat could set a windward leeward, which is a reason to bring out your pin if you're in a light wind condition for a triangle race.
Yep. Thank you. Good. Very good point. So, and again, the other thing I probably should have said right along is, as the committee boat, I highly recommend, I know that I'll be doing this, but checking the weather regularly, early, a couple days before, the day before, the day of, you know, a few times, just really, it's well worth keeping tabs on what's happening around us.
Indeed.
All right, checking in the boats, right? So Eli's talked a little bit about this. This is, oh, actually, I guess not. Yeah, this is the scratch sheet, right? Yeah, okay. So this is the intention of this one, obviously, is to record everybody that radios in or sails by and indicates their you know, that they're racing. There is a column in here with the green arrow pointing at it to indicate if a boat is intending to fly a spinnaker or not for those races that's allowed. And then there's a column at the beginning, obviously, you just put a check in if the boat has properly called in and registered or checked in for the race. Race cues, thank you. So I am guilty of not doing this in the past. After having some conversation around it, I recognize that there's more than one way that this, having boats running the race cues can help. Not the least of which is at the end of the race, if there's any questions about who finished when, we can see some of the boats and hopefully, you know, connect dots between who's visible on race cues and what time they finished, and then, you know, if need be, contact them about who was around them, etc. But it is very helpful as a committee boat. I would recommend that you even remind people. I think actually that's in the some of the stuff that's coming up, but remind people to turn on their race cues for just that reason, if nothing else.
Right. And then having the committee boat also turn on race cues is very helpful, because in order for us to actually use race cues to figure out that finish time, we have to map the course on race cues. And if the committee boat has turned on race cues, you're sitting there. I don't have to search for you. It helps a lot.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, so check, actually we got, where are we? Oh, reporting the conditions. Yes. So yeah. This really is very helpful. Make sure that you document, you know, what the wind is doing. Is it raining? You know, wind direction, general wave heights is helpful. Just jot a couple notes about what your perceptions or what you see on the water for the weather and conditions. Starting the race, as we talked about, we do have 4 divisions this year, and we'll go through the announcements and what we're asking people to do in terms of narrating the race. All right, so the flags this year, a little bit different because we have the 4th division. Division flags will go in the order of white, yellow, white, yellow, blue, green. We have here, and that's also in the committee boat quick reference guide, the duration that a sound signal should be made, right? So the horns that should be sounded and for how long. What else do we have? I think that was it. Elis, did you want to add?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
This will be on the back of the binder, so you don't have to hunt for it. Just pull out that binder and have it out, so it'll be easy.
And it will be in color?
Yes, it'll be in color.
Okay. Okay, so the committee boat guide. So this is very helpful. This will also be in there, right? So we are asking this year that, and people have done this in the past with MAST, and one of the things I really enjoy about it, the committee boat, we recommend just being very open in your communications on the mic, on the radio, right? make sure that we give people all the information that they could possibly need. So at 6 o'clock in preparation for the race, you should get on the radio and make this announcement that shows up here. I can't even read it from here, but we want to talk people through what the race is, what the direction to the first mark is. Should give them an idea also probably of the distance to that mark. We don't have boards to put that up. And talk about the starting signal and how close you are to starting the sequence, etc. And then as you get into the sequence, or right up to the first race, right? We ask that you keep talking on the radio, preferably, to make sure that everybody has full opportunity to hear and see what's going on. Yep. So, okay. So narration, that's what we're talking about here. So narrating on the radio, right? You'll have the person or two people with the flags doing the up and down at the times, one person on the sounding the horn, and preferably somebody on the radio. Give a verbal countdown. Or if you have the person with the watch or the time that's doing the countdown, just keep the microphone open on your radio so that people can hear it. It's also helpful because the horn, in certain occasions, the horn can be heard through the radio as well if somebody can't hear it for another reason. And taking people through each of these, giving them the 5-second countdown is nice, very helpful. And again, announcing at each horn what that signal is, right? This is 1 minute to the start for Division 2, preparatory for Division 3, whatever the signal might be.
Well, I think the other thing to note is that at that preparatory signal, there's an announcement that it is now Division 2 boats may enter the starting area, because all of us are supposed to keep out of the starting area until it's our turn.
Yep, so a great point. That because that's kind of new this year, or it is new this year, it will be helpful to remind people of that and broadcast it. Okay, so awesome slide. Love this one. Right. So one of the new rules.
We're not indicating that he was over early.
Right.
This was just a good picture.
So new rules this year. If this were the starting line, this last year, this boat would have been considered starting early, right? So that you can see that their anchor is over the line. That is not the case this year. All right. And the same is true for finishing. A boat doesn't start and is not considered over early unless their hull is over the line, or any part of their hull, right? Doesn't matter if it's a spinnaker pole, a bowsprit, a sail, a crew member, whatever it is. If it's not part of the hull, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you as committee boat or whoever's sighting that line should be only concerned about a hull getting over early. And when finishing, that first centimeter or millimeter of whatever part of the boat, whatever part of the hull, excuse me, crosses the line is when they finish.
Do you want to say anything about what happens when you do see somebody over early?
Thank you. Yes. So good point. If you do see somebody over early, so and this, just to be clear, this is at the starting signal for that division, right? If there is somebody that is over the line early, even that littlest bit, as the committee vote, your responsibility is to try to notify them. Okay, it is really incumbent upon every racer to keep the eye on themselves. But hailing them, calling out as loud as you can. If conditions allow for it, then great. We want to make every effort we can to notify the boat or boats that are over early. Get on the radio, make an announcement. If you're not familiar with the boats, I know I'm guilty of this, or it happens to me, call out the sail numbers. Whatever you can see, just, give every opportunity to the boat to understand that they were over early and they need to restart or properly start. And just, I think everybody is, but just so everybody's aware, and if a boat is over early, the proper starting, or they have to restart by rounding one of the ends, either the pin end or the committee boat, re-entering the starting area from outside of that, and then coming back up to the line to start. So they have not started if they're over early, essentially.
Right.
All right.
And if somebody is over early, please note it on the
Yes.
on the scratch sheet and on the submission sheet when you send it in. And if they cleared it, note that too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get somebody says, oh, so-and-so was over early. If you've noted that they actually cleared it, that's helpful in the end. You can sound an additional horn if somebody's over early.
Thank you. Yep.
As well.
Okay. Some flag identifications. We do have, on occasion, reason to cancel, postpone, or abandon a race, right? So cancellation obviously is the race hasn't started, it's not going to start, and for whatever reason. Postponement we'll talk about in a second. Abandonment is if a race is underway already. That's when a decision could be made to abandon. The postponement, this is just one I'll spend a quick second on. There can be any number of reasons for postponement. It could be that there's absolutely no wind. It could be that you have done your best to be prepared for this night, going out to do committee boat duty, and you get a flat tire on the way there and you're running late, or whatever it is. Engine doesn't start up, crew are late. You might get out there, or conditions might be worse than what you expect. You get out there and realize that you need to arrange for some more anchor line to be able to hold, or whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to postpone. It's much better to postpone a race and have things set up and stable, really, both for you and for the racers. Make sure that you have time to get yourself set, get the line set, etc., and then start the sequence. So, if we can't start the sequence at, 6:05 or 6:10, if we have to start at 6:20, that's fine. It's much better than trying to start a race while the committee boat is still moving backwards because slack is still being let out, on the anchor road. Again, here, if there's ever any question, if somebody wants to talk about it, be open. You can contact me, contact Liz. Talk about it on the radio. Make sure that you tell the fleet, hey, we're not quite set yet. Even if you can't get this flag up, let people know. If you're in the middle of whatever, just communicate to the fleet and say, we expect to start 10 minutes late, or we expect the series to start at 6:15, whatever it might be.
And then do give people warning that you're now ready.
Yes. Good point. So yeah, please do make an announcement again, sound some horns. Multiple soundings is great to get people's attention, and then make a radio announcement. We are now on station, or we are now prepared, and we expect to start the sequence in 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it might be.
And there's information in the committee boat guide that's going to be posted on the website in terms of, when can you cancel a race due to light wind, and what kind of conditions should you consider as perhaps a little too challenging. But yeah,
Yep.
Always just reach out if you have a question.
Yep. Okay, during the race. So you've done a fantastic job. Everything has gone super smooth, and you've got all the racers off. Off they go to the first mark. Now what you need to do as a committee boat is get yourself reset to the other side of what was the pin, to the other side of the finishing mark, right? Similarly, you are going to try to position yourself perpendicular to the windward mark on the windward leeward, in the case of the windward leeward, and perpendicular to the last mark, let's say on the triangle. And as you can see in this depiction that it is put together, that the finish line doesn't have to be as long as the starting line. Early in the season, late in the season, sometimes it's hard to see. It could be getting dark. We've had some races where you will be very thankful to have a slightly shorter finishing line and being able to keep tabs and get eyes on the boats that are coming across. Even with a pretty high-powered flashlight at 300 feet, if somebody's at the other end, it can be a little challenging to see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anafi did a great job last year when we were finishing in the dark and the rain of asking boats to call out, hail them with their boat name as they were approaching. More communication is never a problem.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably the best point, right? Just be open about communicating. As the committee boat, no, that's a great point. You know, this is not uncommon at all to have people either radio in as they approach the line, ask you if it's dark, right? Ask people to get a flashlight out and shine it on their cell numbers. Any of those things, it's entirely up to you and highly recommended. Make it easier, you know, as easy as possible for yourselves as committee boat. Signals for shortening or abandonment. Again, we may have occasion, or you may have occasion for shortening a race. Our wind does all kinds of fun things, right? So when shortening a race, or actually before I go there, before making the determination to shorten or abandon, again, highly recommend getting on the radio. We're very open. We can talk with the fleet. You can, you know, call me. We can just have a conversation before taking action. But one of the key things is after that, if a decision is made to shorten a course in particular, the shortening needs to, the first boat, I should say, needs to be notified, obviously, before they get to whatever the finish will be. Ideally, you notify people, let's say, I'll give the example of the windward leeward, which is typically 2 times around. We've had numerous occasions where that's had to be shortened to 1 time around. Letting people know, you know, before they get down to the leeward mark, or after they get to, or as they're rounding the second mark, I guess I should say. Sorry, first mark, right? Get on the radio, let people know that the race is being shortened. Again, communicate openly and let people know as soon as possible that that's what's going to happen. All right, finishing the race. Liz, I know this is probably the nearest and dearest to you, right? But so recording the finishing times, important to note the time down to the seconds, right? So we want to note whatever is 6:53:22, right? 6 p.m. 53 minutes and 22 seconds. Legible is very helpful. You know, not only does it make it easier for Liz, it prevents her, or prevents you from getting a phone call or 10 trying to sort through all this stuff. So the easier it is to read and understand, the higher the likelihood that you won't get contacted again. So
yeah, and you know, you should have multiple people writing down times as boats come in and then compare them. I know last year we spent quite a bit of time verifying our results before we sent them in to myself. But this is where that recording can come in handy if you misheard or you have a discrepancy between what one person wrote down for a time in seconds and another person. Once you've done that and verified it, then you rewrite it onto the finish time submission form, noting any over earlies, noting any problems along the way, or if the race was delayed and you used different start times than the ones that are listed, if you could make that notation. That happens, it's not a big deal, but I just have to change the start times in the spreadsheet so that everybody gets the correct time. Please, please, please help me make Saturday morning fun. One of my favorite things about the summer is getting up obnoxiously early and running these scores. So if I don't have them, it's really disappointing. So take a picture of it, text it to me, scan it, email it to me, whichever works best for you. And then we'll have race results soon.
Yeah. All right. So that's the content for this evening. Anybody have questions about any of the new pieces? Anything? No?
See, you did such a good job.
That's right. I'd like to think so, but doubt it.
Hey, Jay and Liz, it's Jim. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of comments based on our experiences. You know, don't underestimate how long it takes to get set up.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes the wind and wave conditions are such that it's difficult to set the anchor and get the line square. Sometimes the wind shifts after you get the line set, and you know, don't be afraid to say, look, the wind shifted, and you know what was a windward leeward is now a reach, which is a really dangerous race condition. You know, don't be afraid to say, look, the wind shifted, we got to reset, because that can really be hairy at the turns. And then, you know, I mean, the two hectic times in being committee boat is getting set up, because we underestimate how long it takes to do it sometimes. And then the finish is, you know, they covered it, but emphasized, put an explanation point, have two people taking down times. We have one person using the scratch sheet and another person just with a tablet of paper, you know, some sail number and time, sail number and time, sail number and time, and they compare notes afterwards. And, you know, it's just, sometimes you get these finishes where lots of boats are coming in at one time. So I just, we have found that if you don't have at least two people recording times, it's going to be a challenge for you. But so those are my comments. And I like the idea of having this stay away buoy. That's, so the idea is you just pull that off the back of the committee boat. You just lay that off.
Yep.
10 or 12 feet off the back of the committee boat.
That's correct. Yep. And it is considered part of the committee boat. So nobody should come close enough to touch it.
Nice. Yeah, great job going through this. But yeah, don't underestimate how long it takes to get out there to get set up, and don't underestimate how many people you need to divide the you know, the duties. We usually have one person calling times, the two people writing them down, one person calling the line. You know, it takes. You said, I think 5 or 6 people.
Yep.
I think that's right. I think it takes 5 or 6 people to not have chaos. And,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Yeah, I think the time thing is absolutely critical. Don't underestimate that one. You know, Murphy always shows up, and something will go not quite as planned.
So do we still allow the option in heavy wind and seas to bring the race inside the breakwater?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Which
certainly.
only works in certain conditions, obviously. It works well with a north-south wind, but not very well with an east-west wind.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
We have tried to call the race by 5:30 if the conditions look bad. And I guess, is that still a request, or is that just like 6 o'clock is kind of it?
That's a great question. I think calling it at 5:30, and I'm open to discussion on this. If it is very obvious, which
sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes it is. I think to me it's pretty rare that that far out it's obvious that, you know, okay. a lot can change in 30 minutes around here, good or bad, okay. Right? So
okay, good.
Yeah,
so make some sort of announcement, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think out of respect for people's time, as early as we can, but I wouldn't jump to that. You know, really only if we know that there's a heavy squall line that's coming and you can see it on the radar, and you know, then I would say yes. But to me, at least, I would wait as long as possible to make a decision like that.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, I guess along those lines then, Jay, I guess I would have thought the same thing about calling a shortening of the course as well, because we, we've generally said we want to wait until boats are a couple hundred yards from the finishing mark, yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than
Calling it at the windward.
calling it the windward mark, yeah. So, I mean, is
Yeah.
that,
So I think these are great things to discuss probably at the time. And I mean, I agree. I would hate to call it too early, right? And then have a sea breeze fill in and we could have had a beautiful race the
Exactly,
rest of the night. I don't have the local knowledge yet. I haven't been out on this water long enough to know all the ins and outs. So I would open it up to, to anybody that at the time, again, if there's question about it, I think I would want to hear from other people that have more experience with what may or may not happen.
I'm kind of going by what we've told people in the past. So for years we've said, wait until they're a couple hundred yards from the finish line. So I'm a little surprised to hear something different.
Yep. Ideally,
Yeah,
I think that's
that's actually what's in the guide is, when you're starting to see those boats coming, that's the time.
Yeah.
I think it's also fair too, under that circumstance, to pull the fleet, because they may be seeing things out at the windward mark that would be different from what you're seeing as committee boat at the pin end.
Mhm.
So I think it's always good to get input from the fleet as to whether they concur with shortening the race, recognizing you may get different opinions based on the type of boat.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
But also keep in mind, you cannot shorten a course once somebody's finished, which
Right.
sometimes you get requests for. You can't do that.
Although we have done that before.
Just saying.
Yeah,
Just
we
saying.
didn't cover it, but you can shorten the course by taking off one leg as well, right? You can go to the, if somebody's already crossed the leeward mark and then conditions shut down, you can go to the windward mark and do the finish there.
Yep.
If conditions allow, and that's an option.
Yep. Correct.
And are we still, I mean, I don't know how to say this without being, so the race shouldn't be abandoned unless conditions are unsafe, right? Not icky. I mean, this is
Correct.
I like to say to my crew that, this isn't needlepoint class, right? This is sailing. So if it's
Right.
icky, we don't cancel the race. We cancel the race because it's unsafe.
I agree. Yep. I think, I mean, there's always going to be a point where it's a judgment call because it depends on the boats. Yeah. There are some boats that will be safer in, more severe conditions or relatively safer. But I agree. It's not needlepoint, cold, raining, windy, all together at the same time doesn't mean we cancel the race, right? That's just a better challenge. It's more fun.
The one thing we didn't talk about, Jay, is the change in the rules about the time limit. Because in the past, we have had a set time that our races end.
Yep.
That is no longer the case. Once a boat finishes, we're responsible for finishing all boats who choose to finish. So
thank you.
They can retire, and there's nothing wrong with coaching people to retire.
Yeah. Yep. That's a great point. Thank you. It has to be left to their judgment at that point. If they want to retire, certainly they can. But yes, once we have finished boats, then we need to, as a committee boat, stick it out to finish everybody that's willing to do so. On the time limits, Liz, I'm trying to remember what they are. We do have it in the sailing instructions, right? But we have if no boat has rounded, I think, the first mark by 7:15.
Let me just look at that. Hold on.
And Bear with us 1 second here.
I've been over this so many times. If no boat has started by 7:15, then that's the first moment that you could cancel a race due to light wind. So we need to wait till 7:15, which is long.
Yep. Okay. And then, yeah, time limits in the sailing instructions also specify if no boat has passed the first mark by 7:15 p.m., the race can be abandoned. And if no boat is finished by 8:30 p.m., the race can be abandoned as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's the first mark, not the starting line. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So I do believe we in the past have had a rule of thumb about if no boat has started by 7, then we can say this isn't a race.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, I think as a committee boat, I would highly recommend just get on the horn on the radio and put it out there with the fleet. I'm sure you will get opinions on whether or not to call it pretty quickly, and be able to make a decision from there.
Mickey, did you have another question? Oh, you're muted.
I typed it. So the 9 o'clock thing applies on pizza party nights too, or the no limit night applies on pizza party nights?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Unfortunately. Clay pointed out that we have new flags that mark our start and finish.
Oh, yes.
In the past, we've used the race committee flag for that, but we have new fancy flags.
So yes, we have an orange flag for the starting line that will mark the starting line. So as committee boat, again, the sight line will be from behind or under the orange flag to the pin end. And then just to make things a little more challenging and more fun, for the finish, we're gonna switch over and we have a new blue flag to use for our finishing line. So same thing, the blue flag should be used for finishing, and sighting the line is from under or behind, directly behind, lining up with the pin underneath that blue flag. Yeah.
To your point, Mickey, I think our pizza parties are on triangle races, which tend to be faster races. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on those.
Bob, you're shaking your head. No sound.
Not necessarily faster races for you. I recognize. Oh, Bob, you're.
I've got a windward leeward course, and I have a pizza party, FYI.
Oh, okay.
On the 23rd of July.
Okay.
There's a question in the chat just
Yep.
for confirming the explanation about moving the committee boat to the other side of the pin after all the boats have started.
Correct. Yes. So after all the boats have started and have gotten clear of the line, and if anybody's over, had the opportunity to restart or officially start, then you can pull up anchor and relocate to the other side of what will now be the finishing mark, right? The other side of the pin. Good question. Any other questions? Did I miss anything in here? I don't see anything.
Oh, we'll post this nice little guide soon.
Yep, the guide will also get updated. I think yeah, some tweaks, but it'll be posted very shortly, very soon. All right, if there is nothing else. Oh,
Jay, it's Jim.
hey, Jim.
Are you guys still looking for a committee vote for June 11th?
We are.
What
Yep.
kind of race is it?
It is windward leeward. I think it's no spinnaker. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, put us down. Put us down. We'll fill in.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Terrific. Thank you. Okay. Well, so again, if you're out there, communicate openly, regularly. If you have questions, call out to me, call out to the fleet. We have plenty of people that have been out there and doing it, and I know everybody's happy to support and help. And lastly, thank you all for doing it. for signing up to contribute to the organization and making it all tick.
And if you didn't put your boat name in the chat, please do, so we know you were here. So I'm
Thanks,
going to call
everyone.
it officially ended. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Hey, only 2 weeks.
Woo!
Nice job, you guys.
Yeah.
Nice job. Very